and the expanding Bitcoin role in the broader blockchain ecosystem. And I have with me today on the stage a group of remarkable experts, each of them bringing their unique insights into the ever-evolving Bitcoin narrative. We have scaling solutions, we have DeFi, and we have liquidity and DeFi, all sorts of interoperability. So without further ado, let's get started. Have our guests to do. Thank you. I'll have our guests to do a round of introduction. First of all, we'll start with Citria.
Yeah, great to be here. So my name is Samy. I'm working on a project called Citria, which I'll share a lot more information about. But basically, I'm working on supporting developers to build applications on our network and help them to achieve user traction, growth, liquidity. So that's a bit about me.
Thank you, Samy. Next, we have Bart.
Yeah, so my name is Bart. I'm the CSO at pStake. We are a liquid staking protocol. We've been around for a couple of years. We used to do a lot of liquid staking in Cosmos for a lot of Cosmos assets, but then transitioned this year fully onto Bitcoin now, really focusing there, building an LST on top of Babylon, who we just saw earlier.
Awesome. Thank you, Bart. Sunny.
Hello. Hey guys, my name's Sunny, one of the co-founders of Osmosis and Polaris. You just heard a talk about it a few hours ago. And yeah, I mean, I've always been a Bitcoin maxi, you could say, and part of why I started working on Cosmos 7, 8 years ago was to, I really believe this idea that Bitcoin will be the base money of all of crypto. The Bitcoin asset will flow into all chains and be the core DeFi asset. And I think it's taken a while to get there, but I think we're finally making really good headway into that vision with, all sorts of new stuff like, Bitcoin layer 2s and, Bitcoin staking and a lot of new trustless bridges coming around. So really excited to see that.
Thank you, Sunny. It's going to be really exciting. Also myself, I'm Belinda Zhou. I run Sharding Capital. So we are a Web3 fund based out of Dubai. Our target is mainly early stage project, and we will try to support our portfolio project mostly in go-to-market strategy in Asia and Middle East. So let's get the conversation started. Since you're talking about Bitcoin layer 2, I would love to ask Samy about Citria, right? How do you think the ZK rollups is helping supporting Bitcoin's role with beyond its current store of value? How do you unlock its further use case?
That's a great question. So there's two parts of what we're building today. There's ZK rollup, so it's inheriting full Bitcoin security and censorship resistance. So this is so you have like Bitcoin, the asset, and then Bitcoin, the network. Bitcoin network today is like undoubtedly the most censorship resistant and decentralized network. So what we're looking to do is like how to extend that network properties to allow developers to build decentralized applications that leverage this block space property. So the ZK rollup itself is type 2 ZK EVM. It's actually client agnostic. So we will introduce multi-VM, like Solana VM, Move VM much later. Right now we're focusing on EVM, trying to take advantage of the very matured developer tooling and infrastructure that's been around for a while now and continues to improve in the Ethereum and EVM ecosystem, but not only about like developer tooling, even things like compliance and security related applications and infrastructure, which is being developed for EVM, like working towards this goal of being able to build everything on Bitcoin and use Bitcoin as the base asset for everything, but also have these maximally decentralized and censorship resistant applications building on top of Citria. So the second part of what we're building is a trust minimized bridge for settlement that is introducing this one of n trust assumption. So fundamentally different to a lot of the current bridges where they're all honest majority trust assumption, right? So yeah, they have varying degrees of like the signer threshold in some cases are really large, but ultimately they're honest majority trust assumptions. So you have to trust that majority of the signers are of course acting honestly, but then also can secure their keys throughout their lifetime from the point of generation, which is one of the big issues we see, like N number, and even like recent cases like last week, where you have like extremely sophisticated attacks happening on people that are professionals at like custodying and managing keys, right? So it's like a very hostile landscape.
Right.
So what we're developing today introduces this one-of-n trust assumption. So of course, ideally we will have like fully trustless bridging, but we're not there yet, and we believe that trust minimize is the best intermediate step until we get there. So today we are rolled out a public testnet, so welcome developers to come and play around with that, come and build whatever you want there, test out the infrastructure and the roll-up itself, and we're getting ready towards launching the full network in February or March, Q1 next year.
Q1 next year,
Correct.
the full network.
Yes.
Wow, very exciting. Yeah, thank you, Samy. So basically, some frustrations I hear nowadays is that now it's just a bunch of like multi-sigs, right? So I think BVM is a really exciting innovation, and it's gonna drive more adoption, I would say. And now let's take a look at the DeFi. P-Stake does risk staking, and you have been also active in building all sorts of like liquid staking solutions. So could you give us like depict like, what's the current status of the risk staking, or say the landscape currently in the Bitcoin ecosystem?
Yeah, so I mean, it's about yield, right? So like sort of the Bitcoin yield has been traditionally Bitcoin doesn't have inherent yield. So long time ago there were a few centralized protocols that came up with some forms of creating yield for Bitcoin. Celsius, BlockFi, they blew up. That didn't work out. So then you have RAT BTC, which was introduced and kind of tapped into the Ethereum ecosystem. That's fine, but I think the real sort of change has been now with sort of Babylon, our friends that were just here, right. Where they introduced sort of this trustless staking of Bitcoin. That really changed the game, because now you get this sort of risk minimized yield on your Bitcoin. And around Babylon, like all these other protocols have been coming up, sort of like thinking about liquid staking, restaking. P-Stake is one of them, but there's more than 10, I believe, that have built now onto Babylon. Very interesting stuff. Everybody's doing something different in a way. P-Stake, we focus on, we want to make it very easy for our users to farm additional yield on the liquid stake token. We focus on security as well, and try to provide sort of the highest yield. So that's kind of our goal. But generally, sort of, I think it's very interesting to see sort of now that there is this yield that you can get on your Bitcoin in a risk-minimized way. And you can see sort of the institutions that are looking at this, that in what was traditionally this low-yield environment for Bitcoin, now all of a sudden they can get something without risking too much. So, and for us, just speaking about us, we have a solution for, let's say, retail, where they can stake their Bitcoin with us. We use a custodian in the middle, who then, we then stake into Babylon through them. But we also work with institutions where they can actually stake from their own wallet. So it's very kind of less risk for them to do it. And we just help them manage the rewards. We provide the LST, and then we provide additional yield on top of it. So I think, that whole system around Babylon is great. And then additionally, there's all these side chains and L2s that have come up. So the whole DeFi ecosystem for Bitcoin is now really flourishing. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen next. But to me, it's like the right evolution, because it gives Bitcoin a utility. Like, I don't like the idea of just saying, okay, I'm going to buy Bitcoin, hold it, and hope it appreciates in value. I think it's actually important that there is utility for Bitcoin. So I'm glad that Babylon has introduced this through the security that they provide. Yeah.
Awesome. So I just have some questions, right? Like, for example, If I am MicroStrategy, will I, try to focus on the Bitcoin yield generation part? Do you think, what kind of factors would you think will drive the institutional interest in the yield generation?
I mean, I think, for institutions, it's really, especially around Bitcoin, I think they were always a bit risk averse. You don't want to, if you're thinking about just DeFi and using Bitcoin and DeFi, like it's still somewhat risky, but the idea of staking with Bitcoin, that's probably a bit more within their appetite. So I do feel that that's what we've seen, is that we've been talking to sort of larger like Bitcoin holders and institutions, and they're quite excited about this because they know that their risk is fairly low. So then they're willing to participate. So.
Do you see there's a difference between the Western institutions and Asian ones?
Yeah,
because
for
the
sure.
Asian ones are more risk on when they hear yield.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely the Asian side is more sort of the people that we've been speaking to. Yeah. So,
okay, got it.
I think, but once they've tested the waters, I think they're more willing to sort of try it out. I'm sure that others will follow down the line.
Okay, they are the pioneers.
Yeah, the pioneers. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Bart. So, Samy, I actually before the panel, I was asking the organizer. I was like, "How come Sunny is in this panel? Because it's a Bitcoin." And then I heard you are and this guy's Bitcoin maxi, and I saw that tweet. I think in May that you said Osmosis is gonna be a Bitcoin layer 2. I don't know what's the status now. Could you share more? What are you planning at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, so I think for me, being a layer 2, it was a little tongue-in-cheek. It's, I don't think it's actually with the security mechanism is what matters, really. I think it's more about, what is the core financial asset in your system, right? And I think Osmosis is shifting more and more towards Bitcoin. We have this product called Alloyed Bitcoin, which, part of our goal was we wanted to allow people to be able to deposit BTC from Bitcoin mainnet, but as well as a bunch of different Bitcoin L2s like Stacks and Citria and Rootstock and a whole bunch of places, and make them all fungible with each other, solve this, liquidity fragmentation that already exists in a lot of Ethereum L2s, and we want to solve this for a lot of the Bitcoin L2s as well. So, I think today on Osmosis, Bitcoin is one of the top traded assets. And so, and then, we've been an early supporter of Babylon, and I've been involved with the team since the inception. And so, we're excited to see that Bitcoin staking starts to get used. I think the big thing that I do want to see is right now most of the Bitcoin staking is very, it just locked capital. I would like to see how to make sure we're actually activating that $1 billion of Bitcoin TVL is great, but if anything right now it's actually locking it out of usage in other ways, right? And I'd like to see how we can get more and more Bitcoin being used in active DeFi positions.
Sweet. So can I understand that basically you are bringing the interchain liquidity trading solutions to the Bitcoin ecosystem, so allowing all the layer 2 tokens and Bitcoin layer 2 tokens, or any sorts of tokens floating in the ecosystem, Bitcoin ecosystem, to be able to also trade it amongst each other.
Yeah, exactly. And I think so you'll be able to deposit BTC from mainnet or from Citria, right? And I think it's one of the only, I think Osmosis is probably the only or maybe the largest order book DEX for native Bitcoin.
Technically, it's achievable.
Yeah. And so we've done this by working with a number of different bridges, right? So the Alloy, what it allows us to do is we use WBTC, but we also use Bitcoin bridged via Nomic. We also use CKBTC, which is bridged via ICP. And what that does is it actually, instead of putting all of our eggs in one basket, it lets us diversify our risk and use a basket of different bridges.
Got it. And then, because now you facilitate swapping, which is trading, and you mentioned you want to see something more than, say, the simple token side, right? So are you going to enable more lending and borrowing, even derivatives on your platform?
Yeah, I mean, today you can already use it in Levana for perps. You can use it in Mars for borrow lend, and not even just beyond the Osmosis chain, like Nolis, which is another Cosmos lending app chain. They started supporting the Alloyed Bitcoin as well, and I think we're just going to start to see that like Alloyed Bitcoin is going to be the primary capital asset in all of Cosmos.
Exciting. Good to see Bitcoin become more used instead of being like an idle asset in the cold wallet. I have a question, right? So, because I'm more on the VC side and then talking with a lot of KOLs, a lot of community members and retails, often we are asked, if the projects have the upside to for them as as like a pleb, right? And I feel like most of the project in the Bitcoin ecosystem haven't launched their tokens yet. Do you think there will be a wealth effect, from the Bitcoin ecosystem, similar to what the airdrop has happened in Ethereum or Solana? So maybe we can start with Sunny.
Yeah, I mean, I think we already started to see an early wealth effect with like a lot of the ordinals and BRC20 stuff. And I think that has sort of started to die down a little bit,
Right.
partially because, I mean, most of those were meme coins. They had very little utility, and then they're all being traded on Bitcoin mainnet, which is just not a good place for trading. It's a very bad UX, with 10-minute block times and all this stuff. So I think that now with more utility tokens, with real value being built in the Bitcoin ecosystem, we'll start to see more sustainable wealth effects happening.
Got it. And Bart, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I guess similar, I mean, I'm hoping, you have all these L2 side chains around Bitcoin coming up, and a lot of them don't have a token yet. So the idea is that they do come up with some interesting concepts where people see utility and value in the token. I mean, then I think that's a good thing, but I hope it's not some temporary kind of phase where, people are just chasing airdrops and then, the ecosystem sort of dies down. I wouldn't like that. So I think eventually it would be nice to see some, real DeFi around Bitcoin, real L2s that have actual value and that people sort of consistently lose for the years to come,
Got
Hopefully.
it.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
seeing more like Bitcoin layer 2s, for example, fundraise news every couple of days. So when capital is flocking to the space, that it means, usually there will be wealth effects. What's your take, Samy? Like, is Citria gonna launch a token
So
early next year?
there's no Citria. So we use like Citria network uses Bitcoin for transaction fees. But yeah, in terms of the wealth effect, I think it will be like that process of evolution we've seen in a lot of other ecosystems already, right? Like even right now, yield in Bitcoin is something quite new and novel. People are excited about it. Like definitely has like a very promising, bright future. But I think even people become more sensitive and aware about yield composition, like very similar to what was happening in DeFi summer initially, right? Like today you do see similar kind of themes where the yield composition, it's more like points, point Zs, or whatever you want to call it, but like more sustainable yield sources will become available, like, and Bitcoin like will be able to tap into that more. Users will become more sensitive and aware about it. So I think it's just a natural process of evolution, and it's also part of like contributes to the memes like JP was talking about. So I think it's also important. Like I don't want to shit on like anybody's launching tokens and stuff like that, but yeah, I mean it's going to happen, and I think over time will evolve, and like the tokens will become more useful. I think even things like Citria wants to, it's neutral, like it's permissionless infrastructure at the end as well. We have like a bunch of use cases in mind we think will be interesting and take advantage of the specific block space properties. But even I think like doing meme coins on Citria could be quite interesting because
Right.
it changed the dynamics a bit, right? Like today, if you go to like just cheaper, faster chains, like you have like a lot of possibility for manipulation or like, massive bot operations. People can just like game things very easily, and the cost basis is very low as well. Whereas if you're trying to do it on Citria eventually, right, like it becomes quite expensive because like all the fees are BTC. It's like more than real money, right? So it's like, can introduce like different dynamics on even things like meme coins, which we're also excited about. But yeah, also doing like borrow lending, other types of application that really need this level of like maximal like censorship resistance, but of course comes at a cost that comes at a premium, right? You won't necessarily need to build everything there. There's just going to be other more cheaper, faster alternatives to do certain types of things on, which is fine. I think like ultimately choice is important both for developers and users.
Awesome, yeah. I feel like a crypto narrative really rotates. It has a strong seasonality. So obviously all of us here are quite bullish about the Bitcoin ecosystem and then Bitcoin DeFi. And recently I noticed like Stacks has a Nakamoto upgrade. And while like it was a pretty significant, I would say, meaningful milestone for the Bitcoin layer 2, but not a lot of people talking about it, right? So I want to ask like, where do you think we are, or when do you think we will see more Bitcoin DeFi become like the, the spotlight of the show? Maybe Sunny, you want to share your 2 cents?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's already starting to happen, right? I think things like Thorchain and Osmosis are doing a lot of Bitcoin volumes. I think the next thing is like, I think the big thing that's been holding it back, okay, I think Bitcoin is already being used heavily in DeFi, right? And I think WBTC is the example of that, right? It is a centralized bridged Bitcoin that's being used very heavily in DeFi. If you go on Aave or something, right, it's probably, in the top, like the way WBTC is structured, it's very centralized, especially in the ability to bridge, right? A normal user can't take Bitcoin on BTC mainnet and like mint WBTC. You have to have a special merchant account and everything to do this. And this basically makes it such that DeFi liquidity of Bitcoin today is very isolated from the real Bitcoin liquidity, which is mostly on Stacks, but mostly on Bitcoin mainnet. But now I think we're starting to see more and more of these decentralized bridges, right? Where you have, Nomic, ICP, Stacks has their own native bridge. And I think once you can actually bridge the assets off of Bitcoin mainnet and use them into lending, I think we're going to start to see a lot more, in and outflows of BTC from Bitcoin mainnet actually moving on to DeFi when users can permissionlessly do it themselves rather than having to go through a merchant to mint WBTC.
So you mean the infrastructure is almost ready for a Bitcoin DeFi summer?
I think it's ready.
Yeah, it's already it's ready, and then not a lot of people actively talking about it. So that means we are ready actually. So we are almost at the end of a panel. I would love to ask our panelists to share one thoughts that excites them most about Bitcoin's future, or a alpha about your project. So we can start with Samy.
Sure. So I think what really excites us is like being able to have this global financial economy built on Bitcoin as the base asset and leveraging the Bitcoin network properties. So that's really what we're most excited about and working to help achieve. The alpha to share is we're getting very close to launching our public mainnet in Q1. We've just launched the public testnet. Welcome everybody to come and help us battle test it, break it, and think of different types of ideas of what we could build using extending Bitcoin block space.
Awesome, yeah. Thank you for the good job in enhancing the block space, because I think it's the biggest limitation right now for the Bitcoin network, right? Yeah. Also, kudos to Citra. Bart, what's your take?
Yeah, so for me, I think sort of this increased programmability for Bitcoin and that really the attention is going there where people, realize like actually we can do a lot more with this asset and use it in DeFi. To me, that's very exciting. Like it is the biggest asset. So I think for us with P-Stake, we decided we wanted to build for the asset and not just build any product. So hopefully we'll see this flourish and really grow to sort of into its potential. And some alpha, well, we're launching our liquid stake token in a few weeks, so please check it out, YBTC. And then we'll have some very cool integrations with this as well, so yeah.
Yeah, so you launch your liquid staking token in a few
Yeah.
weeks.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
exciting, yeah. Sunny, what's your take?
Okay, I'll put on my Babylon hat for this instead. I'm an advisor for Babylon, and so I think, the way that a lot of Bitcoin staking is being done today with like these AVSs, I think it's fine. I think, for me, my vision for restaking in general is it's a way to influence the L1 to do at some point is a Bitcoin zero-conf network where, I think if there's one thing that's going to hold back all of like the Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem today, it's the slow block times of Bitcoin mainnet. So to get from Bitcoin once you're on an L2 or sidechain or whatever, right? It can be fast, but to get onto it takes 10 minutes, or going between the chains takes multiple blocks.
I mean, between layer 2s.
Yeah, and so I think that's going to be like, unless we can solve that, that's going to be the death knell, right, for why Bitcoin DeFi is not going to take off. In fact, when I first switched from using Bitcoin to using Ethereum primarily, it was because of the block times. The 15-second block times are much better UX than 10 minutes. And then, we see in Solana, like, okay, sub-second block times. It's really good UX. And so I think with like a way where you can have miners be able to restake Bitcoin to commit to including transactions in the next block, so you get faster guarantees of inclusion, I think that is very valuable and is what's really going to take Bitcoin to the next level. But if you think about this and extend it even further, like the logical extension of this is that restaking systems give you a way to bribe miners or validators to add additional protocol rules, right? And so, this idea that Bitcoin is stagnated and like we can't activate any new upgrades, I think this is all going to change with restaking systems, where once miners start restaking and committing to adding new rules, this is how we activate soft forks faster, right? And basically we create a free market for activation of new soft forks, and that's why Bitcoin development is going to like skyrocket.
So you're saying basically to provide more software, even like UX, UI, to basically allow more, say, holders, Bitcoin holders, to easily onboard and get onboarded, and then start using Bitcoin as an asset, as a live asset, a functional asset to participate in all sorts of DeFi activities, or just get used to generate some sort of yields.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying, this is more about restaking as a way of how we're going to incentivize faster iteration of the Bitcoin core protocol.
Got it. Thank you. This has been a very insightful session, and I hope it inspires you to look into something possible. And congrats to Bitcoin going, I think, 69K today. Yeah. Thank you for our panelists today. We'll have the end of the discussion. Let's give a round of applause for our panelists.